AITA for telling my wife to marry her expletive therapist because I am expletive done. After our oldest son was born, my wife decided to not return from maternity leave and be a stay-at-home mom. 6 months later, we started noticing missed milestones and other concerns. We expressed our concerns to his pediatrician, who said milestones were just guidelines, and not to worry. Around this time, my wife started to get anxious and frustrated more and more. She said something was wrong with our son and we needed to help him. We went to a second pediatrician who gave us take-home evaluations to do. They stressed out my wife, who said she couldn't fill them out because she was afraid of accidentally answering wrong. I did my best to fill them out, but since she was the stay-at-home parent, I needed her help on certain parts because some questions were phrased, "How many times per day XYZ?" And I needed information from her to answer that. She got very frustrated during this process and said I wasn't supporting her. The pediatrician diagnosed our son as autistic when he was almost 2. My wife was upset by this, and the pediatrician recommended she see a therapist, as parents of autistic children sometimes struggle, especially the parent who spends the most time with the child. In some ways, that's the last time I ever saw my wife. Her frustration and anxiety only got worse. She's a completely different person now. She only communicates in therapy speak, and she acts like her therapist is God, and she is her prophet, carrying her commandments to me from on high to defy at my own risk. Here is an example of some of the insane things her therapist has apparently told her over the years. Our son is emotionally abusive. He was 3 when she said this, because he intentionally withholds affection. I am emotionally abusive because I canceled a date with her after she called me a loser, and I didn't want to spend the evening with her. I am sexually abusive because I told her I didn't want to have sex with her after an argument to punish her. Fights don't get me horny. But that's my fault, I guess. I am financially abusive because I told her I didn't think we could afford another baby, that we ended up having anyway because she wore me down. I am physically abusive because I put my arm out to stop her from walking into the kitchen when I was sweeping glass off the floor. Our son is physically abusive because he accidentally kicked her while throwing a tantrum. He was 5. Those are just a few examples. I have more, but the post is already too long. As I mentioned, she wanted to have another baby. I thought it was a bad idea. I have actually been trying to convince her to go back to work so we can afford specialized care for our son. But even bringing up the idea is, you guessed it, abusive. Well, we had the baby, which I thought was a bad idea, but that's in the past now. Our second son turns a year old soon, and for the past year my wife has acted like our older son, and I are the enemy forces against her and our younger son. She no longer is providing our older son with any care. I had to scale back at work so I could drop him off and pick him up from school, but that wasn't sustainable. We were bleeding money. I finally found an after-school program for him, which is expensive, but it allowed me to work the hours I need to. I told my wife it's not fair to our older son to ignore him and treat him like he isn't around. Obviously, the baby needs more attention, but it's wrong not to give our older child any. It also isn't fair to me, because I hardly ever get to interact with our younger child since I have to do all the care for our older child, and she always has the younger. She said her therapist told her that, in a way, our older son actually killed her first baby because he is the disease that replaced him. I said I don't care about her therapist. This is about our family, and she is neglecting us. She said her therapist said neglect was a weaponized term. I told her to marry her effing therapist because I am effing done. I told her I am filing for divorce. She lost it when I said that. She said I can't talk about her therapist like that. I'm trying to alienate her from her support person. And that's abuse. I talked to my friend who is a lawyer to get a recommendation for a divorce lawyer, and he told me it's an asshole thing to do to insult her therapist. Because therapy is important, and it's not the therapist who told her to neglect our kid, hopefully. This therapist ruined my marriage and turned my wife into a crazy person. How am I wrong for insulting that? But if my own friend disagrees, I guess I might need a reality check.